The island of New Guinea's got a complicated political history. One of the more arbitrary colonial boundaries effectively splits it in two, right down the middle. And that's a boundary between what was then Netherlands or Dutch New Guinea to the west, and British and German New Guineas to the east. Now, British and German New Guinea ultimately became the independent state of Papua New Guinea, while Netherlands New Guinea in 1962 was taken over by the Republic of Indonesia, which inherited the rest of the state of the Netherlands East Indies.
The Indonesian government tends to be quite defensive when confronted with criticism about the human rights situation in Papua, and that's partly because there's so much distorted reporting that comes out through pro-independence solidarity groups, but they haven't addressed these concerns adequately, and a lot of allegations of human rights abuses are never thoroughly investigated by the government. But the way that Papua tends to be viewed by most officials in Jakarta is either as a security problem that needs to be managed, or a problem of poverty and economic development. But justice and human rights issues are not something that the government is comfortable actively engaging on for the most part.
After Papua's incorporation within Indonesia in 1963, there were almost immediate revolts starting in 1965 and 1966, particularly in the Bird's Head area in the northwest. Small groups of people protesting what they saw as injustice or the lack of freedom to actually articulate their desire for independence. And these small rebellions were met with fairly harsh repression by the Indonesian army, which in many respects regarded the entire province as something that it had by right of conquest. It was the dominant government agency, if you like, in the province. These rebellions simmered in many areas and then really flared up in 1977, 1978 in a province-wide rebellion with some degree of coordination amongst commanders of the gathering resistance movement called the Organisasi Papua Merdeka, or OPM, the Free Papua movement. So there were simultaneous or near simultaneous uprisings throughout the province in 1977, and the army responded extremely harshly, and there was basically a running battle for about 12 to 18 months. Tens of thousands of people at that point fled into the forests, and some of those communities have remained in the forest and away from established settlements since 1977-78.
Di tahun 7 ni rano di nambum leka nyabe abegin paraga abor bonu ni melawan oleh di Indonesia gin kono di onda ini gin onda tentara tuluma 3 tuluma 2 di bilmot 400 di wiwa ni no aguara ni no aguara bisiro ni.
There's been a constant cycle of resistance and repression in the highlands pretty much since 1977, so for about 30 years. And you have a population that is essentially entirely alienated from the Indonesian state, living in the highlands, and quite accustomed now to this regular cycle of flight into the forest, return under certain conditions and usually more repressive conditions to the rural centres and settlements under increasing numbers of troops.
Tahun 2004 2004 ni dibilang dari woi nigak jigin pamban abi digin pamban aram digin pambai kunigak ni onda perlawanan onda polisi kunigak sampai onda ini won woi tahun onda 2007 yo ini wari wogran woi kelone ab sekian ribu ini orang-orang onda Indonesia onda TNI Polri biolone hidup 2007 ini ginorak ge indayat penegoronen di ninori wometinen menno.
There's extreme anxiety that pro-independence activists will give information to foreign journalists that will damage the reputation of Indonesia. And of course, that's going to happen. But I believe that if access were opened up, although there would initially be some very critical stories, it would actually help to bring balance to reporting on Papua.
I would imagine that in the 1970s, tens of thousands of people were in the forest for periods of several months or more. It's very hard indeed to get precise figures, either for the numbers of people killed or for the numbers of people displaced. What it is, rather than a humanitarian situation in which you've got a fixed, internally displaced population that requires constant assistance, you've got a condition in which people are continually subjected to the threat of displacement. To some degree they control their movement and they're confident within their own territories, but they're hunted within their territories by the military who have access to helicopters. And so it's an extremely unstable condition, and the fact that it's been persisting for 30 years now means that an entire generation has grown up knowing nothing but this constant cycle of dislocation.
Onda no London beer would end up for Lawyer, we never been away. My unit and gonna never like a no of Ninum. Onda no London, you never be back for living to go on Orega. Or don't come back on the go.
Oh, mira, oh, no go no punungan.
Yeah, and they can not you know, you have no bungle on me. Oh, they will go on the data. Let them burn you on the yonder, run a lugi, Wakara on a human Nengalame or Pro. Be Napolo be a we know, Bigo, Nakolagiva, or Megan Bungu or a man, no Rivarana, Nanigana, Avenogono, no Rivarana Vincunigati.
The inevent can go up for what it is. Elegata Bonga, Kumiwa Lega, Longe, no one game Magalonga.
Inga Maroon way.
Inga Matin and game well.
And I will wear on I got me mad at Piano Retimon. Well, they won't and that minute. They are running beam or American, no, I'm Nippon.
Kita game no we. Game kita tiko len game no we.
Wisana na nino karame nino ugari buke no de tu akwe karame bagadi de ingame abo duam pemen buke.
Kita mine kara.
Tendara ne karame. Itne wa karame ni de nakawa ino bagadi de ori da pano ran o.
No vene gara nonen wone ko avelle wa ingame lone nugo lone yonda yo me nugo lone timeni na nalla no ni neve bano awo makko ko ne gara me nallo no baba kambe gara me ni wato ko lone ni wone ni no re gara me yonda jiba ni ti watu ngore gara na bagari nallo no balle gara me ni watu yonda tindanda bule yonda Desember ini kimete ma mere deka wan dorati Desember 2000 bagara wan dorando kinogro no bamne